have not been successful, and our hope is that we can get it across the ability. It will. It's the only way we can do this now is to get to 75,000 signatures across the Commonwealth, and it's a whole process. Right now, all people can do is actually pledge, because the Attorney General, she had to certify the initial, I think, 10 people who put their name on the list to actually be the original signers. Then they have to be certified, and then once they are certified, then they will actually give us sheets that will come out at a particular date that people can actually, and each sheet is for the respective county, so you can't mix counties, right? Like, it's a really detailed, cumbersome process, and that's very intentional.
Yeah, of course.
And get a short window of time to be able to gather all those signatures. So, but we're believing that, God's going to give us the grace to do that. So that's where we're at. But people should know that's this campaign that we're embarking upon. And the fact that right now you can vote if you're awaiting pretrial or if you're serving a misdemeanor. With that said, as I said to you earlier, unfortunately, no sheriff except Sheriff Tompkins across the Commonwealth has even afforded our whole coalition, right, of people all across the Commonwealth to be able to even go behind the wall. We've been doing this for almost 3 decades with Sheriff Tompkins. So it's not easy just having access to the population, much less to be able to educate them and then even to make an informed decision. As I said to you, we are also extending the invitation for people. We'll be going tonight. A candidate will come with us on tonight, right? Other candidates will, hopefully this is the last week, right? Literally Saturday the 30th is the deadline.
A candidate will come on with you guys tonight.
One of the candidates is coming with us behind the wall tonight.
Oh, wow. Which one?
National Street. Her name is Meiselman, I think.
Oh, okay.
And she was very aggressive in making sure that we extended the invitation, but she responded and was very aggressive in making sure that she could engage the population. So she went through the hoops to get her clearance, and she made sure, and we did everything we had to do. So she will be coming. She'll be the sole candidate coming with us behind the wall tonight. So we've got a few days for other candidates to seize the opportunity.
I plan to. I absolutely plan to.
Saturday is the deadline. And our returning citizens, many of them are people whom they're the underserved. They're the marginalized. They want to engage and make an informed decision. They're brilliant leaders. And they just need to know who they should give their vote to that's going to help amplify their voices, right, while they're incarcerated and coming back into society. So with that said, hopefully you'll be able to join us, as well as we'll extend the invitation again to all the candidates. Everyone should know Saturday the 30th is the deadline to register for the upcoming preliminary election. There's a bunch of candidates running, and it's too late after the primary because many people, I've heard people say, where's my candidate? When it comes post the primary, and they didn't participate in the primary, and their candidate didn't make it post the primary because they didn't vote. So people can't wait to after the primary because you're not going to continue on.
I agree with you. Absolutely, I agree with you.
So
it's very important that folks vote, get out and vote.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. So with that said, tell us, I've had the privilege of engaging a few times here as an engineer with other broadcasts, but it's the first time you've had the opportunity to be on Healing Our Land's broadcast. So again, thank you for taking the time. And I've heard some of your platform, but for those who have not heard it before on our broadcast, who is Will Owen?
You got it. Come on, Pastor.
Oh, no. Ha.
There you go.
All right.
You were there.
Oh, no. Ha.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good way to do it. I usually tell people to say my last name. You can say, if you're in Hawaii and you to say aloha, aloha.
That works. No. Okay. All right. Aloha. Okay.
When I was growing up as a kid, kids are mean. They'd be like,
of course.
I know her, I know him, I know her, I know her. Kids are mean. So,
yes,
I've heard it all. And
I'm so sure.
And I've had fun with it too. But I am a son of Boston, born to Nigerian immigrants from Nigeria. I grew up in Boston. Me and my siblings were all born here in the city of Boston. We grew up in Mission Hill. We grew up in Mission Hill in the 1980s during the Charles Stewart era.
Okay.
So I came from that era, the real Mission Hill, as I like to call it.
Okay.
And what's so interesting about that, is that at that time, Mission Hill was a very rough place to grow up. Mm-hmm. In fact, it was one of the top 10 CNN had it as one of the on a list of top 10 worst neighborhoods in America at
Really?
that time. Yeah, yeah, it was. And so I grew up in Mission Hill. I experienced the whole Charles Stewart era, all of that kind of stuff. And one good thing that came out of that was the slain wife of Charles Stewart, her family paid all 4 years of my college.
Huh.
Yeah, you know.
Wow.
So I like to look at it like I am a rose that grew from the concrete, you know, because it was a very rough time. It was a time that led to a lot of, I want to say, civil unrest between black men and police.
Sure.
You know, because of how the police at the time were handling the situation. Because, again, Mission Hill being a rough neighborhood, and the man who killed his wife blaming it on a black man from Mission Hill. Mm-hmm. I mean, it seemed believable because it's just it was just so rough over there. But unfortunately, for our community, that was not the case. You know, it was him who actually did it. Mm-hmm. You know, and one of the things the family did because of remorse for what happened to many of the brothers who were strip searched, arrested, hauled off to jail or held, locked up until they figured out who did what. They gave scholarships, and I was one of the recipients. I'm only one of 5 people to actually receive this scholarship, where they paid all 4 years of my college at University of Massachusetts Amherst.
Wow.
So, you know, having had that happen, having a spirit of gratitude and service, I came back to Boston in 2005. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was picked up by Mayor Tom Menino, you know, and I have served every mayor since him. So the last 4 mayors, him, Mayor Walsh, Mayor Janey, and Mayor Wu, who I left in 2022, October of 2022. But I was a district rep for him. And as a district rep, I covered all of Back Bay, Beacon Hill, Mission Hill, Fenway, the entire Longwood medical area. I handled everything from zoning and licensing to political issues to issues with institutions that were growing and encroaching into neighborhoods. You name it, I did it for him. You know, that I was his guy in that in that district. I left him in 2012 to go to law school, believe it or not. And while I was in law school, I worked for a former city councilor by the name of John Tobin and also Ralph Martin. Funny thing about Ralph Martin is Ralph Martin was the DA during the Charles Stewart era. He was the district attorney while this chaos was happening. So it's funny how things come full circle. Mm-hmm. Upon graduating law school, Mayor Marty Walsh had just won the election and pulled me in to work for him as his housing commissioner. And I was a housing commissioner for him for about 10 years in 2 different capacities. One at Boston Inspectional Services, where my job was to enforce the state sanitary code. And by that, you know, I went after landlords or developers who basically did not deliver apartments or housing to people in what we called a safe, habitable, sanitary manner. And I made sure that they did that, or I took them to court and used the weight of the city to get them to do the right thing for Boston residents and tenants. Fast forward 5 years after that, I became the commissioner of Fair Housing, Equity, and Civil Rights, where I basically prosecuted anybody, particularly landlords, real estate developers, real estate brokers, banks, anyone who engaged in any kind of housing discrimination or public accommodation discrimination. My job was to prosecute them for the city of Boston. But the thing was, that office is actually controlled and maintained by HUD.
Okay.
But it lives in Boston City Hall. Mm-hmm. Also to write housing policy, help the city draft housing policy, which is what I did. You know, during that time, I also became the executive director of My Brother's Keeper for the Obama Foundation. And I built the Human Rights Commission for the city of Boston.
Okay.
So these are the things I have done in my 20-year career working in the city of Boston. And have been serving the city of Boston doing, you know. So this time around, I'm taking my service to another level, which is to run for the Boston City Council at large. Now, I'm not a politician by any means. I am a humanitarian that is jumping into this form of the political arena. You understand? So this is who Will Anoha is.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
in a nutshell.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That's a powerful, very interesting story. So I'm curious, when in your various capacities, serving various administrations, and some of the things that you talked about housing, and some of the things, in your position, you were able to advocate for, injustices and so forth. With that said, I'm curious, Boston as a very expensive city to live in, right? Even with all those things, gentrification is happening.
Yeah.
People are being priced out of the city of Boston. There's even been predatory loans.
Yes, of course.
And entities that have, and so that's the housing issue is a major crisis.
Oh, yeah.
Here in the city of Boston.
It's the biggest crisis we have.
So with your experience in those various capacities, how would you as a city councilor be able to push further? Because even with all those wonderful things you were able to do with the various administrations, it hasn't stopped the problem from perpetuating it and getting a bigger problem.
Thank you for asking that. And that's a really good question, Pastor. You see, what it is the part of the reason why that problem continues to grow, and no disrespect to anybody who's on the Boston City Council, but none of them understand the problem. None of them are astute when it comes to understanding housing.
Yeah.
And the last person who was on the city council that was really astute when it came to understanding housing was Lydia Edwards, Council Lydia Edwards, who's now a state senator.
Yes.
You understand? In any event, her and I were kind of trained along the same ranks, but from different angles, but we were in the same housing world. Here's what happens with housing in the city of Boston, and here's my recommendation on how to fix it. First and foremost, Boston, the average person in Boston makes between $59,000 and $69,000 a year.
Okay.
I mean, excuse me, $59,000 and $61,000 a year. That's it.
Okay.
Everybody will tell you affordable, but affordable is only a small part of the issue. Because the issue with affordable housing is, one, it's not affordable. That's just the first thing. Second thing is, what they're telling you is affordable is you have to be poor to get into it. You have to be poor to stay in it. And if you make a couple of $1,000 more, let's say you make $1,000 more because you got a promotion, $5,000 more because you got a promotion, you now run the risk of losing your housing. You understand what I'm saying? So people have to make a very, very terrible decision. Do I move forward like I'm supposed to in life, or do I stay where I am and scale back so I can keep a roof over my head? No one should. That's a very unconscionable decision. Nobody should ever have to make that decision. It's wrong because housing is a civil right. It's also a human right. It's the first law of nature of self-preservation, shelter. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
So, the fact that this is going on and no one on the city council is educated enough in the housing field to fight this or talk about it is troubling to me, and one of the biggest reasons that I'm running. Now, to fix the issue, when I was the head of the Office of Fair Housing and Equity, we did a study for the Biden-Harris administration. Boston, under my leadership, became the first office to actually complete this and became a national model. And it's called the Analysis of Impediments to Fair Housing.
Okay.
And all it did was it looked at all the things in the city of Boston that are impediments to housing, from transportation to education to healthcare to employment. All those things are in a polygamous relationship with housing. You understand? They're married because one affects all. I can tell more about you from your zip code than any medical report could ever tell me about you. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Right. So Boston, as I said a moment ago, the average person in Boston makes anywhere from $59,000 to $61,000 a year. What's happening is that we can fix this problem by doing what is called workforce housing, where the city has a triple bond A rating, can team up with a developer to actually build housing for the working class.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? And in doing that, you would set it so that no one pays more than 20 or 30% of their income for their housing. So you can now have a household that makes anywhere from $60,000 to $250,000 a year that they wouldn't pay more than 20% or 30% of their income for their housing. You understand? Right now, currently what's happening, people are paying anywhere from 65 to 75% of their income for housing. So they're basically living only to work instead of working so they can have a living. You understand what I'm saying? And this situation is totally wrong. It should not happen that way. But by doing this, and this is what the study showed, we can actually do this. We can create workforce housing. I won't even say middle class because we don't have a middle class anymore. It's been totally eroded. You actually have either people who are very, very poor, people who are super rich, and the 90, and the rest of us, the 90% of us are in the working class. You understand what I'm saying? So by doing this, we can easily remedy this problem. Another thing the city of Boston can do that I would bring to the city council, that I would propose, is what I call an abundance package. Okay. So where you're building 3, 4, 500 unit buildings that are 3, 4, 5 bedrooms. Okay. Whether in a complex style or whatever, for the residents of Boston. So anyone who's a teacher, firefighter, police, you work in the hotels, you work in the restaurants, as long as you work in the city of Boston, you're part of the working class, that housing will be for you. And now what happens is, if you happen to get, even if you are in what is called any of the affordable units, and you now do better, you're not going to be afraid of losing your housing because you now jump into the working class pool, where you're not going to, you now join the pool where you're going to be able to make whatever you're making, but also pay not more than 20 or 30% of your income for your housing. You understand what I'm saying? So now you're not facing a crisis of being homeless because you're moving forward the way you're supposed to. You understand what I'm saying? I do. Mayor Wu signed an ordinance for this in 2022, April 1st, 2022. But nobody on the city council has read it. No one on the Boston City Council has looked at it. No one on the Boston City Council currently is fighting for it, which is insane. If you asked any of the current city councilors, okay, what's your plan for housing? Oh, we're going to build more affordable. We got the 20%. Here's the problem with the 20% that they put the other day. They increased the affordability to 20%. 20% of nothing is nothing. No, developers cannot do it because banks are not giving the developers the funding they need to do it because they can't make the numbers work. So you have to go back to the 13% that we were doing that was under Marty Walsh, because that's feasible to do. You can't set a policy for an institution that you don't control or can't regulate. Banks are not regulated by the Boston mayor or even the governor. It's regulated by the FDIC. That's federal. You understand what I'm saying? So you can't set a policy for an institution that can tell you to kick rocks. You understand what I'm saying? This is what they've done, and that's only to score political points. You understand what I'm saying? Because most developers cannot, very, very, very few, actually have the financing to do the 20%. And even then, for them, it's not worth it. It's not lucrative enough. So they say, forget it. But if we go back to the 13%, yeah, you can do it. But what's going to happen is you're only going to be able to take care of a very small segment of the population. But that leaves you and I and everybody else who's in the working class naked and out there, still struggling for housing with the exorbitant cost of housing that's going up. If you do workforce housing, you can remedy this problem. Another thing the city can do immediately is master lease a bunch, since they talk about rent control. Rent control is not the answer. Rent control is bad, and I don't support it. The reason why I don't support it in its current form is because rent control hurts mom and pop landlords. If you have a person who's a senior, and all they have is that investment property they have, right? They're not working. They don't have anything else coming in. Maybe Social Security. Once you cap the rent their property taxes continue to skyrocket and go and go and go. They will never have at some point, they will not have the money to keep up with the property taxes. That's one. Two, they won't have the money that's necessary to do the home improvements that you have to do to keep a unit going that the city requires you to do so someone could live in that unit. So there's a big financial burden that gets put on them. It hurts them tremendously. You understand? And Boston got rid of it, I want to say in 1994. Mayor Tom Menino got rid of it for this reason. Now, progressives have declared war on me. They don't like me for this reason, but part of it is because progressives have a very evil agenda, if you ask me, a lot of them.
Okay.
And they don't like people who are educated, who could push back and say, no, this is wrong. Because if you go back to doing something that you did before that was a failed policy, that's not progress, that's a regress.
Okay.
That's regressive.
Okay.
Cambridge was the epicenter for rent control.
Okay.
If you bring up that word in Cambridge right now, it's a curse word.
Okay.
They refuse to do it because another thing rent control does is it creates blighted neighborhoods.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
I'm hearing you.
It creates blighted neighborhoods. So what we have to do is think forward. Part of thinking forward is one, building workforce housing. And the second thing is the city can master lease a bunch of units from developers. They can master lease it and put families in them and pay the developer, the landlord, whatever the landlord wants, but also now cap the rent for families. So that way they've already paid off the landlord for the year or 2 years or whatever, however long they master lease it for, right? And then you can drop the rent for families that can actually afford it. So that way you're still creating a subsidy. So the city is still coming up with a portion of the money regardless that will subsidize what that person would normally pay, which is about, if you get a 2-bedroom, you're looking at about upwards of $3,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. You see what I'm saying? These are things that institutions do that I would certainly implement and say, why aren't we doing this? Because a lot of times desperate times call for desperate measures, right? At least that's what people believe. But very seldomly is the desperate measure the right thing to do. It's a Band-Aid, you know? It only helps you because you're in a survival situation, but it only takes care of the here and now, but it's not long-term. What I'm talking about is long-term common sense solutions that can actually help us maintain families in Boston.
Okay. With that said, I see here you say that I have a comprehensive understanding of what works in city government, and I appreciate it. You worked, as you said, 20 years in different administrations, so that underscores your comprehensive understanding of how to navigate city government. You work in various capacities.
Yes,
and
sir.
you said, with that said, and frankly, what needs to be overhauled. So that's what you're seeming to lay out is with your understanding, you're saying it needs a complete overhaul, and you're understanding some of the ways, some innovative ways that we could be able to have some solutions to make those overhauls.
Absolutely.
I see you say here, I will be a city councilor for all of Boston, and you're running for all of Boston, bringing your experience, your professionalism, and civility and appreciation for varying viewpoints.
That's right.
To get things done, as you talked about some of the viewpoints, and there are others, but to have civility and being able to, because it gets really heated in those kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the notion that we need civility to be able to appreciate the various perspectives, so that we can just not be polarized and stuck,
Exactly.
but really process, be open to look at how do we really look at all of the innovation that we can
That's
do.
right.
Because clearly we have all the resources that we need in the city of Boston.
Boston is resource rich, but results poor.
I was just going to say that. Or I was going to say it this way, it is resource rich and coordination poor. And results, same thing. If they were coordinated, right, then we would have different outcomes. With all the resources that
Yes,
we
sir.
have, clearly we've got plenty of problems. And there's really no reason. If we were coordinated with those resources, we have, I mean, this is the educational mecca of the world.
That's right.
This is
Thank
and
you
Human
very
Services. We talk about hospitals. People come from all over the world.
Exactly.
For
Exactly.
for health care.
Amen. Exactly.
Right, we're the first state in the country to be able to have healthcare reform. So we, and it's getting, even as you talk about this notion of progressive.
Yep.
Right, progressive is we're considered very a progressive place on paper.
On paper. Yeah.
Right. So with all that said, I'm really curious as to your platform. I want to go fast forward because I see you're saying you're looking forward to connecting with us soon about how we can talk about a shared vision for for Boston and its future.
Yep.
And we're at a really volatile place right now from my perspective. I share with you, and this is breaking news for those who haven't seen yet, but unfortunately, Sheriff Steve Tompkins has stepped down from his position. From my understanding, I just saw breaking news on my social media, and so that's very disheartening because he's the only sheriff in the Commonwealth who's a sheriff of color. Is he perfect? No. Who is? Has he done much more than many other sheriffs across the Commonwealth? Absolutely. So it's unfortunate because now what will happen is the governor will have to appoint someone, and hopefully it will be someone who is still forward thinking and is going to maintain some of the innovative programs that he has implemented, and as well as they'll have a special election, and hopefully again the candidates will be someone whom ultimately will continue forward moving for our brothers and sisters who we're ministering to, who are behind the wall, who are going to ultimately experience the repercussion of this, him stepping back.
Right.
So one is, I'm just curious. So I want you to lay out your platform. I see here on your website, and you can tell people your website so they can check it out.
You can go to willforboston.com or follow me on Instagram at willforboston. Or on Facebook, Will for Boston. They can email me at info@willforboston.com as well.
And the Will is WILLFOR for Boston.
Yes.
One word.
One word.
.com.
Thank you, Pastor.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Of course. So I'm looking at the website, and I'm looking at your priorities, and I want to make sure that
I'll tell you very quickly. I have 4 things I want to focus on. So housing is one. Workforce housing is one. The second is mass and cast. Third, education. Fourth is public safety. And I've picked those 4 things because these are the most critical issues to our city, and these are things that I can actually work on and keep my promise as to what I'm doing. Okay. Because people can tell you a whole bunch of stuff, and I tend, knowing how the political circle works, I want to be realistic. And what I can at least work on in say 2 or 4 years. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And so next is mass and cast. Mass and cast is a humanitarian issue for us. So what I would do to deal with mass and cast, which is, I work down at mass and cast. I work at Boston Water and Sewer right now. I'm the director of health and safety for the commission. And what happens is every morning I see mothers, I see fathers, I see families grab kids close because people are openly using drugs, shooting up. People are defecating on people's property. People, over the last 2 weeks, if you've checked the news, people have come home and have found people in their bed sleeping or eating their food, and it wasn't the 3 little bears. People broke in. And that's a dangerous situation, because if you come home and you find someone in your house, that easily could turn into a life or death situation. Because you're gonna by law you can't flee your castle. The castle doctrine, you can't run from you can't flee. You're gonna fight for your place. You understand? And someone out of fear could easily, you can see, I don't even have to tell you, you can see how that could turn deadly very quickly.
Yes, sir.
But again, these are men and women who deserve the dignity of being helped. How I would do it, I think COVID gave us the answer, sir.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, I would bring in the mercy ships. We used it during COVID in New York. We used it in California. I think we might have used it here when the hospitals became overrun. The mercy ships are Brigham and Women and Mass General combined on a cruise line. It's a full-scale hospital on a cruise line. That's all it is a hospital, a floating hospital. That's it. It has an emergency room. It has a operating room. It has beds. It has everything you need in a hospital operates under. We use it during wartime when the soldiers go to war. We send the mercy ships to wherever they are at war for the wounded soldiers. You understand what I'm saying? So I would use that right now, because put these people on that ship and treat them. The sheriff's department is doing it with the drug called vitriol. Vitriol breaks the neurons that makes you go back for the addiction. It kills it. The sheriff's department, believe it or not, has a 100 to 100 success rate. No one is talking about this because it's a pilot program. You understand what I'm saying? They're using this drug and it is winning. It is saving lives and turning lives around. Okay. I would enforce the drug law, 394C or Section 35, which says that if you're caught doing drugs, we can send you automatically to treatment. And by doing that, you don't get a criminal record. You understand what I'm saying? So there's no criminal record. All that happens is that you went for treatment. That's it. You know, and I'll treat them. Once we're done treating them, then we give them the therapy they need to rehabilitate them mentally. From there, some training that gets, I'd link up with the Pine Street Inn Pine Street Inn, because they have a training program that gets people back into the workforce or go work in the restaurant or what have you. But you can save these lives. You can give them a second chance. In fact, our former mayor, Marty Walsh, you know, is in recovery. You know, he's someone that had that issue, and who, if someone didn't save his life, who knows where he would be today? He wouldn't have risen to be a mayor, right? Correct. So by saving a life, you never know what that person can turn out to be tomorrow. Yes, sir. You understand what I'm saying? Absolutely. And we can do this and give them the dignity they deserve to be helped and treated. That's what Jesus would do, would he not? Absolutely. You know, so again, you said it a moment ago. This is the medical hub of the United States. But yet we can't seem to figure out a man-made problem. How is that possible? We're trying to figure out cancer, AIDS, this disease, that disease. We got COVID under control in a year, but we can't get this under control. How is that possible? And this is a less threat than COVID. You understand? So that being said, that's what I would do, because it's really about being in the business of saving lives and doing it the right way, correctly and earnestly, right? Secondly, Boston Public Schools, or thirdly, we got kids that are graduating Boston Public Schools and they cannot read at an 8th grade level. That's unacceptable in a state, in a city that is the seat of education for the entire United States. How is that possible? And we have the resources. What I would do is put better wraparound services around the kids, because 5,000 of those kids are homeless. So part of my housing policy would be to reserve housing for those families that have Boston Public School children that are homeless. You know, that, and housing for seniors, and also housing for people who are incarcerated. Because if you are incarcerated, one thing that happens is when you get out of it, BHA has a rule that you cannot go back to anything that's a BHA property, because whoever you go, whether it's your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your wife, whatever, they can't have you back, because they run the risk of losing their voucher, because that's a rule. You cannot have someone who's been incarcerated on BHA property, meaning living there. They can visit you, but they can't stay there. You understand what I'm saying? Or anybody who has had gang ties or anything like that, you can't do it. They won't do it. It's a rule. So these brothers and sisters, when they come out from behind the wall, they're facing a homeless crisis themselves. Absolutely. Nobody's talking about this or trying to even figure out how do we make this work for them as well too, right? But going back to Boston Public Schools, so wraparound services around the kids, that's one too. I would do what is called enforcement, something that Mayor Tom Menino did in lieu of taxes. I would make the colleges and universities pay their fair share of taxes, because Boston has given them everything and they do nothing for us, absolutely nothing. And whatever they do, it's minuscule, it's pennies. You understand what I'm saying? So I would make sure that they are paying their fair share of taxes. That's money that we could use to better improve our schools, because let's face it, if you're in a school building that's dilapidated, what's your likelihood of wanting to learn?
Correct.
These universities spend millions upon millions of dollars to make sure they have the state-of-the-art facility. So when you go there, you want to sit down and learn. You're comfortable to learn. You're ready to learn. Environment matters.
Absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying? The second thing I would have them do, I would propose, is each college and university adopt 5 to 10 schools. Pay for them, and it's like a big brother, big sister system. Pay for them, and on top of that, provide them with the manpower, the professors, the teachers that can come in and teach those young minds, right? Because a rising tide lifts all boats. That's what I would do. I would at least propose that. You understand what I'm saying? So this way, we're saying, wait a minute. If we're giving you all this, you need to do more for our schools. Harvard, sir, owns more land in Boston than it does in Cambridge, but yet it has a Cambridge address. To go to Boston University, do you know how much it costs?
I don't.
$72,000 a year.
Okay.
So by the time you graduate from BU, you're looking at somewhere for close to about $300,000, if not that, in student debt. But most of the kids who go there, their parents can afford it. They're wealthy. They're international kids, whatever. You understand what I'm saying? How many of our students does BU or Harvard give scholarships to go to? You understand what I'm saying? So I feel like it is a great injustice to institutions take great advantage of our city. We've given them everything. We are landlocked. We can't even build out anymore. We have to build up because of them. Fine. Now pay it forward. Adopt some of these schools and pay your fair share of taxes. This way we can have the money to keep the city running. We can have the money to house seniors, people who are coming out of incarceration, homeless kids that go to Boston Public Schools, and the city can have the money it needs to get into other venture capitalist things in building or public-private partnerships with developers to build housing for the city of Boston.
With education, the public school system, do you support a fully elected school committee, a hybrid, or what is your position with regard to the school committee?
I would say hybrid, because the reason is Boston used to have an elected school committee. And see, the problem is, at least that I see, is that let's start with hybrid and see how that works out. And so because when we did have it before, because of racial things that were going on, education was politicized. This is a historical thing that has happened in America since the beginning, right? Politicizing education, where black and brown kids get the short end of the stick. So, and the reason we got rid of it to begin with in the first place is so that we could have one person to blame if the school department wasn't doing what it was supposed to do, and that's the mayor. You know, I'm not saying Mayor Wu particularly, but I'm saying but that's why we got rid of it. I think right after Kevin White or Ray Flint, one of the two, somewhere in that era. And forgive me for not knowing the exact time. That's when we got rid of it. So we could have someone who we could hold accountable. Now things have changed quite a bit. So I would say let's do, half elected and half appointed. So the mayor still has 51% of the controlling vote. In case something does go wrong and they try to politicize or do something crazy, we now can look at the mayor, whoever's in charge, the executive, and say, hey, wait a minute, this is happening. You have a duty to these kids. Scale it back or do something about it. Because if you leave it completely fully elected, I just fear that, again, people want to do, in desperate times, they always seek desperate measures. But I think, why don't we go slow and see how it works out first? And if we see that, or if someone can show me how a fully elected school committee could be the answer, then I don't have a problem supporting that. But I just think that to just willy-nilly just do something because we don't like something, let's do it in increments so we can learn from our mistakes, see what works and see what doesn't work. Let's not just fully, because if you do that, then to reverse it will become a serious problem.
I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. What would you say to, you talked about it being, the potential for it being politicized if it is fully elected, when my understanding is politics are basically people elect you right? And then you're beholding to the people, not to the person who appointed you, being the mayor, right? And so I'm curious to how you respond to the fact that there was a ballot initiative, and overwhelmingly the people of Boston who vote said they want a fully elected school committee. That's what the people said.
That's what they said.
And so, but that was not heard, no disrespect, but I'm just telling the facts, right? Like they put it on the ballot. People it was a referendum, not binding, but nonetheless, the people spoke who did participate and overwhelmingly said, we're the only city in the entire Commonwealth that doesn't have a fully elected school committee. I don't know the history in terms of what was. I know what is, right? And it's not fully elected. We're the only city in the entire state that doesn't have a fully elected school committee. And the people said they want it. So many people are feeling, though, we elect you to do what we want.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that, because I do believe that the voice of the people is the voice of God. The voice of God is found in the voice of the people. I do believe that.
Okay.
At least history has proven that if you read your Bible correctly. And I'm not saying you particularly.
Okay.
And of course, there's going to be biblical challenges to that.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's another whole conversation.
Yeah. We'll do that. I do the knowledge. No problem. But what I would say is that if that's what the people want, sure. It's only my 2 cents. I'm not against it if it was fully elected, and I'm not against it if it's a hybrid. I only think a hybrid is a safe choice, just so we can work out the kinks. You understand what I'm saying? Because if we do it fully elected and then we got some serious kinks in it, it will be difficult, extremely difficult, as we were just talking about with the whole incarceration thing and them losing their ability to vote, to now reverse it or go back and
I think it's a little different. We're talking about our state constitution, vice, a policy that's on a city level. I think it's a little bit different in terms of the process.
I think, what I think is, if we're to go fully elected, I just want to see us put safeguards in place that can keep it from becoming politicized. That's all. Because I for one, I'm all for education. I'm raised by Nigerian parents. Education is everything to us. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm very, very big when it comes to education. I believe everybody deserves a good education and a fair opportunity to get a good education.
I'm glad you said that, because I see here on your when I meet Will that you actually went to quality parochial school. Right?
I did.
So you were fortunate.
Yes, sir.
That was your experience. Your
Yes, sir.
parents made that sacrifice, and you were afforded that privilege.
Yes, sir.
And that's not the case.
Right.
For many people, you talked about the population of people who are homeless, who are going to students who are going to school, who are homeless.
Right. Exactly.
Who don't have those supports and resources to go to private school. Never mind, even encourage them to be able to participate even in public school.
But you know what? We got public schools that do better than private schools. For example, Boston Latin. That should be the standard of every school and not the exception.
But it is.
You see what I'm saying? So for me, I would love to provide all of our children the ability to have a world-class education. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? I would love to see that happen, because it bothers my heart that schools are performing at different rates, and we know why. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's something I think we certainly have to look at. People talk about the pipeline to prison, type system, and one study has shown that the lower someone's reading ability is, there's a correlation with their likelihood of going to jail.
Absolutely.
87% of the kids in Boston public schools are black and brown. Those are our children. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So again, I would love to provide, and again, college isn't the answer for everything. Even bring back programs like the People's Academy have. You understand what I'm saying? Programs like that will help young minds go into the trades. Mm-hmm. You You understand what I'm saying? That's another thing that can save life. College isn't for everybody. I don't believe everyone has to go to college to make it. Because if you have a skill that you can have sharpened and honed by going into the trades, hey, let's do it, because you're useful. You understand what I'm saying? So, but again, I would just like to provide everybody with at least a good basic education. Period.
And I appreciate that, and I'm glad you went to talk about the technical vocational high schools, because I think that that's an important, the trades, right? So education is one of everybody's not that, and then here in Boston, I think that is another problem, right? Even when we talked about Madison Park vocational,
That's right,
right, and really resources being put into that. I went to a vocational technical high school,
yes, sir.
And I loved the experience, and they were adults that would go to the school in nighttime and people from the community could get their car fixed, go to the restaurant, get all the different things that they were being able to get people who were learning but being trained. And so we can do that here in Boston, and I don't see anything like that that's really geared to really pour it into one students, two into people within the community, three affording a resource for people within the community to get services and invest into students learning.
I agree with you. And the problem with what we're doing is soon there'll be a workforce shortage because we're not backfilling. We see it now with the Boston police. They're doing everything they can to have a class like every 6 months because there's a shortage of police, because most of them who are older or from the baby boomer generation are retiring or have retired. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So now we have a shortage.
Correct.
So we're trying to fill it. I would do things like have schools that are set up for, if you want to go to the police, you go to this high school right over here. If you want to be a firefighter, go to this high school. If you want to be EMS, go to that. If different things that will keep at least backfilling the workforce, while at the same time you're getting into the trades and also getting a decent education. That's all.
Absolutely.
I think that we are in a time in history where we have to be innovative.
Absolutely.
We got to be innovative with our education system. You understand what I'm saying? And make it so it fits the current time, modernize the modern time we're in, and that can still serve people and serve its purpose.
Absolutely. Time flies so fast. Unfortunately, we really only have 6 minutes. And I see you talked a little bit about housing. You talked about education. I see your other two priorities are transportation and the economy and public safety.
Yep.
So if you want to touch on those and how you would be able to address some of those things, because we understand how all those things are issues.
So public safety, I think we definitely have to do more with in supporting our police. We definitely have to fix mass encounters, because that is both a public health and a public safety issue. Getting more black and brown folks or people from the community, let's just say in general, onto the police force, because that's important. I mean, our first responders, particularly law enforcement, as I said a moment, is they're aggressively trying to recruit just so we can have folks who can actually do that work. Boston touts itself as being the safest city in America, which is a fallacy. It's not true. What makes us, and the reason we say that is because our EMS is unbelievable. They can get you to a hospital in 2 to 4 minutes to save life. Okay. So what's happened is that we've gotten very better at saving life, but we have not gotten better at dealing with the gunplay that's out there, or the knife situations, or violent crimes. We've got to do more. I would definitely bring back the street worker program. Have programs like Scared Straight. Have programs like where you have Boston police in the schools, because I grew up with Officer Friendly, and in my generation, we were grown up to know the police were our friends. Okay. We've turned, because of things that have happened, but have not happened in Boston anytime recently, there's a very negative outlook on police. And what's interesting right now is most of the police in the community are actually people from our community, black and brown. The Boston police force is highly diverse now, more than it has ever been. Okay. Before President Obama left office, he said, if you want to learn how to do policing, go to Boston. They do it right. Okay. You see what I'm saying? And so we're doing something right when it comes to that. The only thing I would say is that we need to keep getting in with programs like My Brother's Keeper or BAM, which is Becoming a Man, run by my brother Sean Brown, get into the schools early, get the kids from going that route. You understand what I'm saying? Mentorship,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing, you know, in partnership with our law enforcement. So we can do things like that to turn young minds early, turn them early and turn them in the right direction, you know, steer them away from the gang life. So those are things that I'm very, very much so interested in. That's what I did for My Brother's Keeper. The next thing is, what did we say? So that's public safety.
Economy, transportation.
Transportation. Oh man, transportation is a tough one. So folks get mad at me because of my position on bike lanes. And it's not that I'm against them. I'm against them the way they currently are.
Okay.
Bike lanes are not new. Mayor Tomanino did this, but the thing is he did it with traffic engineers.
Okay.
The reason it looks the way it looks now is because we did it with city planners and we were chasing federal dollars. And now you've got traffic everywhere. That doesn't make sense. And on top of that, we also hinder our EMS and our first responders because police and fire cannot get down the street in time to people in one lane of traffic.
Okay.
Nobody is really thinking about this. And if you have this conversation with police and fire and EMS, they're going to tell you, yeah, this bike lane thing isn't working. It works on some streets and it doesn't work on others. So we need to redo it. So we put them on streets that are wide enough where you can do that and have 2 or 3 lanes of traffic and take them away from the streets that can't have that. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm very adamant about that position. Progressives get mad at me for my position, but it's the simple truth.
Okay.
You know, the first bike czar we had, her name was Nicole Friedman. Anybody can look it up. You know, Boston did this, but we did it in a way that made sense, so no one felt or saw this level of traffic that we now have. You understand what I'm saying? And we seriously have to think about first responders because this creates a huge traffic jam. And if they can't get to you in time, when you know you have an emergency, minutes are precious.
Absolutely.
When your life is in jeopardy, minutes are precious.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we literally have 1 minute left, so I'm going to give that to you to be able to speak to our audience and tell them why they should vote for you and how they can support your campaign.
Thank you, Boston, for listening to me. Again, my name is Will Onoha. I'm running to be your city councilor at large because I have what it takes to help move our city forward. Our city is in a very critical time, and it needs people who are going to be independent-minded, independent thinkers that will actually bring common sense solutions to the city of Boston. And it's very simple. If you like the way how things are currently going in Boston, then keep voting for the folks you've been voting for. But if you really want to see a change in Boston, and if you believe that your city can do better for you, and that you deserve better from your city, that we can do better as a city, then give me a chance on September 9th and November 4th. I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you for having me on this radio station. Please go to my website at willforboston.com. Check me out on Will for Boston at Instagram or on Facebook, or you can even email me at info@willforboston.com. I'm willing to hear your feedback. Any suggestions you may have, I take all of this into consideration, and I'd love to engage you in dialogue, you know. So a rising tide lifts all ships. Let's lift Boston up together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Will Onoha.
You got it.
And thank you, our listening and viewing audience, and we'll see you on next time. We're headed out to the House of Correction. We won't be back for the second hour today, but we'll be back on, what's today, Friday? Wednesday and Friday, God willing, up next week. God bless you.
Just to be close to you is my desire. Yes. Why do I want to be where he is? Because in your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. best part is no evil can stand where you are. So I just want to be close.
Boston Praise Radio, the voice of the church in New England. The views and opinions expressed by the following paid program are those of the program producers, and they do not reflect the views and opinion of Boston Praise Radio, its staff, or management.
Hi, this is Mike D of the UA7 Gospel Countdown, Urban America's 7 biggest current songs and more. Join us in fellowship with our broadcast on www.bostonpraiseradio.tv, Roku TV, and WBPG 102.9 FM radio. These TV and radio networks are all coming out of Boston. Radio and TV that cares about Boston and beyond. This is yours sincerely, Mike D of the UA7 Gospel Countdown. Tune in and be blessed.
This is Renee Wise, station manager for the Boston Praise Radio and TV network of 30.